Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we begin today, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back to the Crypto Republic, your go-to channel for the latest high energy updates in digital assets. Before we get started with today's business, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic, bringing you updates every day at noon and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Before we break this down, thank you to everyone who takes the time to like, subscribe, and share these videos and comment. Your engagement helps get this information in front of more people. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high-value insights to the crypto community. I thank you very much, and I love replying to all your comments and reading them as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk, because something just happened in the XRP ETF space that makes absolutely no sense on the surface. And whenever things don't make sense in markets, that's usually where the real story is hiding. I've seen this movie before. Back in the early 2000s, during the rise of the internet stocks, there were moments when major institutions quietly exited public offerings, not because the internet was failing, but because the rules weren't finished being written yet. Retail saw panic, institutions saw timing. That same pattern is showing up again. And one of the most recognizable digital asset managers in the world has quietly pulled the U.S. spot XRP ETF filing. No press release, no public explanation, no warning. And what makes this even stranger is the timing, because this happened while demand for XRP exposure is clearly rising, not falling. So today, I'm going to walk you through what actually happened, what we know for sure, what doesn't add up. Because remember, truth is treason in the empire of lies, ladies and gentlemen. And why this may not be bearish at all, and could actually be setting the stage for something much bigger. We'll also cover Ripple updates, ETF flow data, regulatory timing, macro policy, and the infrastructure Ripple is quietly building behind the scenes. All right, let's break this down. So what actually happened? Let's start with the confirmed facts. WisdomTree, a global asset manager with decades of experience and billions under management, officially withdrew its registration statement for a proposed U.S. spot XRP ETF. The filing was pulled effective January 6, 2026, according to SEC records. Think of this like a company pulling a product launch 1 week before release. Not because the product failed testing, but because the regulatory sticker wasn't approved yet. The product still exists. The demand still exists. The launch just waits. Now, when I pulled up the actual filing and read through it, this part really stood out to me. There was no stated reason for the withdrawal, no regulatory denial, no compliance issue, no language suggesting a loss of confidence in XRP, just a clean withdrawal. And that silence is what sparked speculation across the market. Because the decision came during a period when investors' interest in XRP-linked products remains elevated, which makes this move notable within the broader digital asset ETF landscape. That's not an opinion. That's reflected directly in ETF flow data. Why this move doesn't add up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about demand for a second, because this is where the story really starts breaking down. ETF analysts who track daily institutional fund flows, the same analyst hedge funds and asset managers rely on, have been pointing out something extremely unusual. While Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs were seeing net outflows, XRP-linked products were seeing strong inflows. Over the last 2 trading days, one day saw roughly 64 million, the next day saw 59 million. That's about 125 million in just 48 hours. This reminds me a lot of gold in the early 2000s. While tech stocks were collapsing after the dot-com bubble, gold quietly absorbed capital. No hype, no headlines, just rotation. That's exactly what this feels like. So when people say maybe demand just wasn't there, I don't buy that. People weren't exiting crypto. They were rotating out of crowded trades into XRP. And I'm thinking out loud here, but when something doesn't line up with data, I pause. Let's talk about possible source of XRP ETF flows, Vanguard. There's another angle here I want to throw out. And I want to be very clear. This is my personal observation, not a confirmed report. Recently, Vanguard opened access for roughly 50 million clients to purchase crypto ETFs through approved third-party products. If you ever worked with a financial advisor, you know how this works. They don't chase headlines, they allocate quietly. They rebalance portfolios one client at a time. And then one day, volume shows up. Not long after that happened, we started seeing increased volume. more consistent inflows, stronger bid size pressure in XRP-linked ETFs. I can't prove session, but the timing lines up. So tell me if I'm off here, but it feels like we're seeing the Vanguard effect. This isn't retail FOMO. This is advisor-driven capital, and that's a very different kind of money. Let's talk about the question no one is asking. Here's a detail most people glossed over. The filing withdrawal does not affect investor capital because no one's shares of the ETF were ever sold. No redemptions, no portfolio unwind, no forced selling. This is like canceling a concert before tickets go on sale. No fans get refunded, no damage is done, the stage just stays dark for now. And that made me stop for a second, because if the ETF was seeded but never launched, you start to wonder, am I speculating here? And I want to be clear about that. But institutions don't move randomly without purpose. Is it possible WisdomTree preferred direct exposure, decided to wait for clearer U.S. regulation, or chose a non-U.S. structure as a better risk-reward play, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know yet. We're keeping our eye on the pulse of this story. But these firms don't employ average minds. They're extremely smart people making these decisions. And sometimes the most important moves are the ones that happen quietly in the shadows. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone who's signing up for our members channel. It's open right now. Thank you very much. I also want to thank everyone who's in the Patreon. Welcome on both levels. It's great to have you here. And a lot of things are happening right now. You know, the big thing that's on our minds, ladies and gentlemen, is a potential shutdown and tariff news. Today we're having some seltzer. It's a seltzer day. The tariff news can come at any second. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a law degree. I'm not going to speculate. But if that comes in thumbs down, Julius Caesar style, there'll be a broad-based sell-off, in my opinion. If it comes back thumbs up, I don't even know. A big question people have been asking us about accumulation zones, what happens, right? You got to go slow and steady for certain things. The big news right now, everyone on the street is talking about, is they're talking about the indexing that's coming next week, the balancing. Again, we told people what word on the street, what banks are talking about: selling gold, selling silver, selling aluminum, buying nat gas, buying cocoa, buying crude oil. A lot of people have been asking us, and even in the comment section also, you know, we're out of our spec longs before this for different reasons of why, okay? Because, again, it's a gamble. You could have a rocket ship up or down. We saw XRP finally being discussed on mainstream media news. That's when you really can begin to tell that a lot of things are happening and why, right? But it's almost so funny to see that even the reporters who are fantastic reporting on it, they don't really know what they're talking about. Some of the things in the crypto space, talking about just things that everybody in our space take for granted, knowledge that we know about the speed of certain tokens and coins. So it's unbelievable. When you start hearing things on CNBC and mainstream media, that's when you know that it's starting to happen. It's getting ready. The ship's getting ready to set sail. Plane's getting ready to take off, right? So that's big news, right? But then again now, why it has to be spoken about is that there's major ETFs and they're gobbling everything up, okay? With GSEs being instructed to buy mortgage-backed securities with the capital at their discretion, that's another form of quantitative easing, okay? Like we've gone over before in other videos, we believe that printed to win, it's going to begin sooner than people can think of. Again, the world's at a very different point right now. There's things that are changing forever and for good. And what I mean forever and for good is that maybe some institutions are around that are not so good. But I always say truth is treason, the empire of lies, right? So who knows what's good or what's not? But again, you got that Gucci conviction, the clarity. You're following your plan. We know what's coming and why. So with them being spoken about on mainstream media, that's all that you need to know. They're late, but they're starting to pepper it, right? You're dropping mustard seeds, okay? One thing also XRP they just got a thumbs up right now in the UK from a major regulator, which is going to help the RLUSD with electronic money. We're going to go over that again later. That just came out. That's good for them. But we're quietly seeing things take shape and take form, okay? And, you know, some of the other things that we're paying attention to, you're going to hear in the news right now, is saber rattling, right? But again, the world is changing. And what's amazing about XRP, and I keep telling you this, is I believe, and this is my personal opinion, it's a settlement asset. And when I try to explain this to people, right, what I'm trying to explain right now, and this is the most important thing, what I'm trying to explain, it can help institutions with speed of hand to do arbitrages between assets. It can help settlement. So as you watch Ripple and their entire ecosystem, with the new additions there and their clearinghouse, you'll see institutions that take advantage of this be able to take advantage of arbitrages, in my opinion, with speed of hand. And that's a major thing that a lot of financial institutions are going to sign up for, in my professional opinion, because when you're sitting on the other side of the desk where I am, and you have to make a lot of decisions during the day, and everything matters, and you're explaining this to institutions, and they want speed of hand because you're managing their money. You're directly involved in their day-to-day operations, so you see what's going to benefit from them. So you're not taking this from the theoretical or the classroom discussion. You're taking this from a tactical, situational awareness about what you do day in, day out, about how you can improve your bottom line and members of your organization's bottom line and your customers' bottom line. Speed of hand between markets using certain assets, especially XRP, is going to be tremendous because you can take advantage of an arbitrage much faster. And anybody who knows arbitrages, as the buying and selling is happening of two things that are not priced right, the arbitrage gets small till it's not there. Now imagine if you could do it in the speed of hand that XRP offers. The amount of money that you can make is ridiculously copious. So to me, people that start adopting this inside of the Ripple family of organizations are going to have first crack at this. So that's massive, right? But again, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk about the broader XRP ETF landscape. Despite this withdrawal, the XRP ETF ecosystem is very much alive. Currently, live or active in the U.S., Canary Capital, Grayscale, Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, 21 shares. Combined exposure is now approaching $1.8 billion. In the early days of index funds, only a handful of firms survived. The ones that stayed early didn't suffer. They captured concentration. With fewer new entrants, existing ETFs face less dilution. Capital concentrates faster, liquidity improves. Ironically, this withdrawal may actually benefit the ETFs already in market. Roundhill covered call XRP ETF. Roundhill is preparing to launch an XRP covered call strategy ETF. That fund holds XRP exposure, writes call options. It's designed to generate yield. It does not remove XRP from the open market the same way a pure spot ETF does. Think of it like renting out a house versus buying land. One produces income, the other restricts supply. This is an income strategy, not a supply-constraining vehicle. The Europe contradiction, let's talk about this. WisdomTree continues to operate a physical XRP ETF in Europe. Different jurisdiction. This mirrors how derivatives trading migrated to London in the 1980s when U.S. rules lagged. Capital doesn't disappear, relocates. Different regions, different teams, different risk tolerances. This isn't a loss of confidence, it's a jurisdictional decision. Let's talk about regulatory status. Reese Merritt, managing director at Ripple for the Middle East and Africa, has been very clear. XRP has secured regulatory clear status as a non-security digital asset in the U.S. due to a landmark court ruling. The ruling is XRP's version of when Microsoft settled its antitrust case. The uncertainty lifted and business accelerated. But the U.S. still lacks comprehensive crypto legislation, which is why Ripple continues to pushing for bills like the Clarity Act. Rumor, the U.S. Senate could vote on the Clarity Act around January 15th. That happens, the entire ETF conversation changes. Let's talk about legacy media. Analysts on CNBC are openly saying XRP has become one of the hottest crypto trades of the year. Not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, XRP. XRP ETFs saw inflows during Q4 weakness. Investors were buying dips. It was a less crowded trade then. Ladies and gentlemen, why XRP payments use case matters? If you ever tried moving money across borders through traditional banks, you know how broken the system is. Delays, fees, intermediaries, uncertainty. People use fintech layers just to get around banks, and that tells you everything. XRP exists to fix that friction. ETFs get headlines. Payment rails create staying power. Let's talk about the macro layer. Scott Bessent, U.S. Treasury Secretary, has been clear. The United States is going big on digital assets. Why? Stablecoins, backed by U.S. Treasuries, are becoming one of the largest new buyers of U.S. debt. Current estimates, $300 billion today. Potential $2 to $5 trillion demand near term. Without crypto, that demand disappears. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the infrastructure, where Ripple is winning. While all of this noise plays out, Ripple keeps executing recent integrations, acquisitions, automating treasury operations, speedy reconciliations, reducing regulatory errors, producing audible real-time data. Industry thinkers like Chris Skinner describes this as a transition into an intelligent, embedded financial system. This isn't hype, this is plumbing. G-Treasury Salveia. Ripple's enterprise stack now integrates with G-Treasury, which recently bought Salveia. Salveia is a node-based financial automation platform designed for treasury reconciliation, regulatory reporting, data management, and audit trails across jurisdictions. Most corporations still rely on spreadsheets. Salveia claims 100x faster reporting, 98% fewer errors and costs, fully auditable compliance trails. When you plug that into G-Treasury and tie it into Ripple's digital asset rails, tighten the loop between fiat, digital assets, compliance, settlement. This is what institutions care about. This is how scale happens, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, WisdomTree stepped away from a US XRP ETF filing, but look at the full picture. Demand is strong. Capital is rotating into XRP. Regulations progressing. Infrastructure is accelerating. Institutions are watching. This doesn't feel like regret. It feels like positioning before the next phase. If you got value from this, like this video. Share it with someone who needs context. Drop a comment. I want to hear your take. Your engagement, ladies and gentlemen, helps get this information in front of more people. Thank you so much for tuning in, for liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high value insights to the crypto community. I want you to stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay emotionless. Have a great day, and watch XRP closely. This could be a defining moment. Ladies and gentlemen, this content is for informational entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research. Consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions. Remember, the game is changing, and those who understand it first will benefit most. Make sure you're on the right side of it. You have two choices. You can be like the crowd, reacting after the move, rationalizing why they missed it, telling themselves to never let it happen again, or you can be the one who saw behind the curtain, the one who understood the infrastructure shift, the one who positioned early, not randomly but intentionally. Because some moments in history are loud, but the ones that change everything are quiet, right up until the moment they're not. And this is one of those moments. Do not blink because the world is distracting you with noise. While XRP continues developing behind the scenes and building momentum in the broader digital asset. Stay sharp, stay informed, accumulate knowledge. Your move now will be remembered. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning. This opened your eyes. Smash that like button. Ring the bell. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Turn on notifications. And most importantly, subscribe to Crypto Public. We break down the major global banking trends shaping digital assets today, giving you context, clarity, and research you can use. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay in the Republic.